is resting on the edge of the mattress. Their eyes are locked on your face like they've been waiting for you to wake up. And if you sit up, they don't look away. If you walk to the kitchen, they follow with their eyes first, then their body. Most people think they know what this means. My dog wants food.
Or attention. Or a walk.
Or maybe they're just being weird. But behavioral neuroscience tells a completely different story. Because what your dog is doing right now may be one of the most complex expressions of social attachment, emotional prediction, and interspecies communication anywhere in the animal world. And most owners have no idea. Let's start with the food theory, because it sounds reasonable. Your dog stares at you because they want something.
A treat. The ball. The door opened.
A piece of your sandwich that you absolutely should not be sharing. And yes, sometimes that's true. Dogs are opportunists. If you open a cheese drawer, your dog suddenly becomes a behavioral scientist.
But here's the problem.
If this were only about resources, your dog wouldn't stare at you when nothing is happening. They wouldn't do it while you're folding laundry, while you're brushing your teeth, while you're sitting silently on the couch doing absolutely nothing interesting. And they definitely wouldn't do it when they have better things available.
A sunny patch of floor. A soft blanket.
The window where the neighborhood drama is happening. The squeaky toy they were obsessed with 20 minutes ago. So why do they keep choosing your face? Why do they keep looking at you, even when there's no immediate reward? Because in many cases, your dog is not just watching for treats. They are reading, regulating, and referencing. Your face is one of the richest information sources in their world. It tells them what happens next. Whether the environment feels safe. Whether you're relaxed or tense. Whether they should settle or get ready. And this is where it gets deep. When your dog stares at you, they may not just be asking for something. They may be checking the emotional weather. And once you understand that, the behavior behavior stops looking random. It starts looking intimate. To understand why, we have to talk about one of the most important ideas in psychology. Attachment theory. In humans, attachment explains why infants keep checking back with caregivers, why toddlers look at a parent's face before deciding whether something is safe, and why nervous systems calm faster in the presence of someone trusted. Now here's where it gets fascinating. In 2013, researchers Lisa Horn, Ludwig Huber, and Friedrich Range at the University of Vienna tested whether dogs show what psychologists call the secure base effect. The same pattern seen in young children. Dogs were given a problem-solving task, and the researchers changed one thing. Sometimes the owner was present, sometimes absent, and sometimes replaced by an unfamiliar person. The dogs were significantly more motivated and persistent when their owner was They're human. That matters. Because it tells us your dog does not relate to you as background furniture. You are not just the person who fills the bowl. You are an attachment figure. And when your dog stares at you, they are often doing something profoundly simple and profoundly deep at the same time. They are checking where safety is. Human babies do this constantly. In developmental psychology, it's called social referencing. A child looks at a trusted adult's face to decide how to feel about the environment. Is that noise dangerous? Is this person safe? Can I relax here? Dogs appear to do something remarkably similar. And what they found was extraordinary. Dogs don't just respond to our actions. They are unusually tuned to our attention, gaze, and emotional availability compared with wolves and many other species. that human-directed orientation is one of the signature features of domestication. So when your dog stares at you from across the room, they are performing the single most fundamental behavior in attachment psychology. Looking toward the being that helps organize their world. They're not being creepy. They're not being needy. They're telling you something much more profound. You matter to my nervous system. And if that sounds dramatic, the chemistry says it's not dramatic enough. But here's where it gets really interesting. Because this isn't just psychology. It's chemistry. In 2015, a landmark study led by Miho Nagasawa and colleagues at Asabu University in Japan found that when dogs and humans shared prolonged, affectionate eye contact, both experienced increases in oxytocin, the same hormone deeply involved in parent-infant bonding, trust, and emotional closeness. And crucially, that same feedback loop did not appear the same way in hand-raised wolves. That is extraordinary, because it means your dog staring at you is not just a learned trick for getting snacks. It may be part of a co-evolved biological loop. Oxytocin is often called the bonding hormone, but what it really does is help bodies answer a question. Am I safe with you? And when the answer is yes, the body changes. Stress softens. Vigilance drops. Connection deepens. Now think about what happens when your dog stares at you for several seconds or several minutes, multiple times a day. They are not just collecting information. They are participating in a relationship mechanism. That quiet eye contact in the kitchen while you make coffee. That long look from the hallway while you work. That weirdly some of that may be request behavior, yes. But some of it may be this: a biologically ancient bonding system running in real time. And this is where it gets even deeper. Because alongside oxytocin, we have to talk about cortisol. Cortisol is one of the body's major stress hormones. It helps an animal stay alert and responsive. But in social mammals, one of the biggest functions of secure attachment is to keep that alert system from staying too on for too long. In other words, sometimes your dog stares at you because they're not trying to control you. They're trying to calibrate themselves through you. They are reading your face to decide whether they can settle. And once you see it that way, staring doesn't just mean pay attention to me. Sometimes it means help me understand this moment. answer is basically from the beginning. Long before dog beds. Long before apartments. Long before anyone joked about their dog being obsessed. We're talking pre-agriculture, pre-writing, pre-civilization. A major 2026 genetic study identified the earliest known genetically confirmed domestic dog at around 15,800 years old. From Pınarbaşı in present-day Turkey. The same research suggests dogs were already genetically distinct from wolves by around 18,000 years ago, and that the dog-wolf split likely began more than 24,000 years ago. Think about that. This relationship is older than farming, older than cities, older than almost everything we call modern life. And the archaeological details make it even more emotional. At Penarbussy, dogs were buried alongside humans. There is evidence they were fed by people. Other early finds in Europe suggest dogs weren't just tolerated scavengers hanging around the edge of camp. These weren't just working animals. They were family. And over thousands of years, dogs appear to have become exceptionally good at something wolves do not do in the same way. Watching humans for social information. That includes following our gestures, reading our direction of attention, and yes, looking directly at our faces. Your dog isn't doing something unusual when they stare at you. They're doing something that has been selected for across 15 millennia. Because the dogs who paid close attention to humans were more likely to survive near them. And some part of your dog still knows that. Now, I want to tell you about a finding that nobody talks about enough because it feels almost impossible at first. If you asked most people whether being stared at all day would be relaxing, they'd probably say no. Honestly, it should be unsettling. You get up to get water, eyes on you. You shift in bed, eyes on you. You open one snack wrapper. Suddenly, you're under surveillance. And yet, most bonded dog owners don't describe it as invasive. They describe it as comforting, grounding, even protective. How is that possible? How can being watched feel safe instead of threatening? Because context changes everything. A stranger staring at you activates vigilance. A bonded being watching you can activate belonging. And this is where it gets deep. For most of human history, being watched by someone safe was not a threat. It was a signal that you were not alone. Someone was nearby. Someone was attuned. Someone was still with you. So maybe your dog isn't just watching you. Maybe they're restoring something older than privacy. Maybe their gaze is tapping into a system your own nervous system still understands. I am being held in someone's awareness, and that for many people feels a lot more like love than surveillance. And then we get to one of the most fascinating discoveries of all. In 2024, researchers publishing in scientific reports with work linked to the University of Jyväskylä and the University of Helsinki, found that dogs and their owners showed linked patterns in heart rate variability, or HRV, during interaction. HRV is one of the best measurable indicators we have of nervous system state. In general, higher HRV is associated with better recovery and calm regulation, while lower HRV often reflects stress or strain. The study found that when the owner's HRV reflected a more relaxed state, the dog's HRV often did too, and vice versa. Read that again. Their nervous systems were in sync, not metaphorically. Physiologically. And this only happens within bonded pairs, not random humans, not unfamiliar animals, not just anyone in the room. This only happens where there is a real relationship, which means your dog staring at you may not just be emotional dependence. It may be biological coordination. They are not simply looking at your face. organize around. And once you realize that, the stair stops looking empty. It starts looking full of information. There's one last thing I need to tell you, and it might be the most important part of this entire video. If your dog has been staring at you in a familiar, bonded way for months or years, and one day they suddenly stop, don't brush it off. Dogs are creatures of habit. When a deeply established behavior disappears overnight, there is usually a reason. Sometimes it's environmental. A new pet, a new person in the house, a schedule shift, a move, stress in the environment. Sometimes it's physical. Pain often shows up first as a subtle behavioral change long before obvious limping or stiffness. Dogs with vision or hearing change the same way. And in older dogs, it can also be cognitive decline. A major dog aging project study of 15,019 dogs found that the odds of canine cognitive dysfunction increased by about 52% with each additional year of age. And inactive dogs had 6.47 times higher odds than very active dogs. That doesn't mean every behavior shift is a crisis, but it does mean this: your dog doesn't have language. Behavior is the only way they can tell you something is wrong. So if your dog's familiar gaze suddenly disappears,
Pay attention.
because silence, in a dog who usually looks for you, can be information. So the next time it's 2:11 in the morning, you roll over in bed, and your dog is already there, chin on the mattress, eyes quietly fixed on your face. Remember what's actually happening. Not just begging. Not just habit. Not just my dog is weird. But something much older,
Much deeper.
and much more biologically real than most people realize. 15,000 years of evolution. A neurochemical loop involving oxytocin. A stress regulation system shaped by cortisol and co-regulation. An attachment pattern that mirrors the bond between parent and child. And measurable synchronization in the nervous system itself. All of it pointing to one quiet truth. When your dog stares at you, they may not just be trying to get your attention. They may be telling you, "You are where my world makes sense."
And honestly,
The science suggests it might be doing something for you too. If this changed how you see your dog, subscribe to Taught by Me Mind and drop a comment below. I want to know, does your dog stare at you most when you're calm, or when you're about to get up? And if you want to understand why your dog follows you everywhere, that's the next video. And the science behind that one is even stranger than you'd expect.